Realm of Ink has reached version 1.0 and finally arrived on consoles, PS5, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch on May 26th, 2026, after nearly 2 years in early access exclusively on PC. And look, I know many people have been waiting for this moment to take their first steps in the game, but if you think that just because the game has left early access, it will be easy on you, I need to tell you one thing. This game shows no mercy. I spent a long time testing builds, exploring interactions the tutorial doesn't explain, and discovering interesting things about the game. Today, I am going to give you 10 advanced tips that completely changed how I play. Whether you are a newcomer on console or an early access veteran who hasn't explored everything yet, perhaps these tips can help you. I'm Matthew, and the video is starting right now. Creating combos with the dash is exactly the kind of secret that makes the difference between players who just survive and players who master the game. At the beginning, we naturally see the dash only as a defensive tool, that quick dodge to avoid taking damage, but mobility modifications are much more than that. They are the core of incredibly powerful offensive builds. When you start seeking perks that add damage or lightning and projectile abilities to each dash, your dodge transforms into a constant offensive weapon, and that completely changes how you experience the game. What makes this strategy so special is the amount of synergies available. There are several different perks that activate damage, fire projectiles, or apply extra effects every time you perform a dash. And combining these perks creates a chain of destruction that never stops. As you move through the environment, dodging enemy attacks, you are simultaneously attacking without needing to stop, without needing to click to attack. Your movement becomes the attack itself, and that makes combat much more fluid, dynamic, and intoxicatingly addictive. Dash attack builds are not just viable, they are probably the most fun in all of Realm of Ink. You feel the power of always being in motion, turning every dodge into a devastating counterattack. This approach requires maintaining a frantic pace, but the reward is a feeling of almost continuous power, where you control the battlefield just by moving smartly and aggressively. It is one of those mechanics that, once mastered, makes you want to restart the game just to test how far the build can go. If you are looking to elevate your level in Realm of Ink, focusing on mobility modifications and building around the dash is a path well worth taking. Do not underestimate the power of turning your dodge into your main source of damage. It can be the difference between dying in the first minutes of a run and reaching the final stages dominating everything. It is an advanced tip that few players explore early on, but it becomes essential for anyone who really wants to master the game and extract the most from its roguelike potential. Defeating bosses is never just about passing a phase for me. It is the moment the run actually starts to make sense. Each Guardian of the book's areas drops premium rewards like elixirs and gems, and that is when you realize the game gives you the right tool at the right time. The problem is that many people take the first item that appears without thinking about whether it fits what you are already building, and that can ruin a run that had everything to be strong. The most important thing is to stop for 2 seconds before picking up a new item and ask yourself, does this really improve what I already have, or is it distracting me from the path? Sometimes the item looks cool, beautiful, and powerful, but if it doesn't mesh with your build, it becomes dead weight. In a roguelike, build coherence is everything. An item that complements your synergy is worth much more than a strong item that breaks your rhythm. This simple decision to evaluate before grabbing something already puts you ahead of many players. But the part that really changes the game in the long run is the Foxblood and the Talent Stella at the Fox Inn. Defeating bosses gives you the resources, and the Talent Stella is where you transform that into permanent progression. Investing Foxblood there is not just a bonus, it is the main way to get stronger from run to run, unlocking upgrades that stay with you even after you die. Without this, you are always starting from scratch. With it, each run leaves a legacy that helps you in the next ones. In practice, the ideal strategy is to use boss rewards to reinforce your current build, not to reinvent the game every time and save as much Foxblood as possible to invest in the Talent Stella. This way, you have a strong run in the short term and solid progression in the long term. It is this balance between building well now and investing in the future that makes the difference between those who just clear a few arenas and those who start consistently reaching the final phases of Realm of Ink. When I started playing, I thought it was enough to hold the heavy attack and let the area explode, but I soon realized that this approach made me slow, stuck in long animations, and much more vulnerable. What changed everything for me was understanding that combat isn't about using the strongest hit all the time, but about creating a rhythm that keeps you agile while still dealing massive damage. That's where the mechanic of intelligently alternating light and heavy attacks comes in. The secret is to start with a few fast light attacks and, even before the animation ends, cancel with the heavy attack. This is what the game calls a quick heavy, and it is exactly what accelerates the heavy attack's charge up and returns your mobility almost instantly. Instead of waiting for the heavy hit to complete, you use the light hits as momentum to enter the heavy attack much faster. The result is a much more consistent DPS and a character that no longer feels stuck in the middle of a fight. In practice, this completely transforms how you move in the arenas. You engage the enemy with lights, release the canceled heavy, dodge before the counterattack arrives, and repeat the cycle. This flow is what makes the difference in large waves and against bosses, where reaction time is everything. With the quick heavy mastered, you stop being a static target and become someone who controls the pace of the fight, dealing area damage without losing agility. Training this sequence in the beginning feels strange because the body wants to stick only to heavy or only to light attacks, but once the rhythm sets in, it becomes automatic. It is that feeling that the game has finally understood what you are doing, and you understand the game too. If you enjoy builds that make bosses melt without needing to chase the perfect combo, this continuous effect tip in Realm of Ink is one I would take very seriously. On high difficulties, I honestly think the game rewards those who build damage behind the curtains too much, because poison, burn, curse, and bleed keep working while you just need to survive and maintain pressure. This aligns well with the concept of Realm of Ink, which is often highlighted in game materials focusing on dot-oriented builds, such as combining Venom Ink with damage over time effects. The strongest point here is that you don't rely on a perfect sequence of hits to cause an impact. You apply the status, maintain the stack, and let the game do the heavy lifting, which is especially valuable when enemies start having more health and punishing mistakes. In player discussions about this type of build in similar games, Burn and Poison are usually seen as the most reliable DOTs, because they are easier to stack and convert into real damage throughout the fight. For me, the secret to this strategy is thinking less about immediate burst and more about consistency. Instead of looking for that flashy attack on screen, you want pieces that increase status application, duration, damage per stack, and synergy between effects. When it clicks, the boss starts losing the fight without realizing it, and that feeling is exactly what makes a DOT build so satisfying in an action roguelike. So, if you want to assemble a strong run, I would prioritize anything that helps spread poison, burn, or bleed as early as possible, because the real value of this build appears in the repetition, not the damage peak. On high difficulty, surviving while the DOT corrodes the enemy's health bar is, in practice, one of the safest and most efficient ways to win. And when the build gets going, you get that great feeling that you aren't just hitting, you are dismantling the boss piece by piece. This tip about synergizing ink pets with your playstyle is one that completely changes how you view Realm of Ink. Many players, including myself at the start, fall into the trap of choosing a pet just because it is cute or visually cool, but the game truly rewards those who treat their companion as part of the build, not just as decoration. When you align the ink gems correctly and understand what each pet does, the instant transformation becomes one of your greatest weapons, especially in harder phases where every second counts. The in part is where the magic really happens. That is where you evolve your pet and start to see the difference between having a random companion and having a partner that actually boosts your style. If you play more aggressively, you want a pet that presses the attack. If you play defensively, you want something that supports and counters. Ignoring this is throwing money and time away, because the wrong pet evolution can make your run much weaker than it needs to be. The case of Momo is the perfect example. Evolving him correctly, with 2 epic gems or higher to unlock the special skill, makes a huge difference in the late game. It is the type of upgrade you don't miss as much in the first few arenas, but in the final stages when enemies die slowly and damage needs to be constant, it is the evolved Momo that becomes the game changer. His special skill is not just another attack. It is what turns your run from very difficult to much more viable. In the end, thinking of powerful transformations as a central part of your strategy changes everything. When the pet transforms at the right time, damage explodes, the battlefield changes, and you gain room to breathe, reposition, and counterattack. In an action roguelike, where each run is a learning experience, mastering ink pets and aligning them with your style is what separates those who just clear stages from those who truly master the game. At the beginning of the game, we tend to pick gems randomly or focus only on immediate damage, but combining the right abilities with Blaze Ink creates something much greater. Shields or spiral orbs that rotate around you and melt nearby enemies while you focus on what really matters: dodging. It is like having a personal army working for you all the time. What makes this infinite orbs build so powerful is exactly the freedom it gives you. While the orbs rotate, dealing constant passive damage to all enemies around you, you can focus purely on moving, dodging, and positioning yourself strategically, without needing to worry about aiming or attacking actively. There are specific combinations of perks and abilities that maximize this effect, creating orbs that persist for a long time, spin faster, and deal absurd amounts of damage. It is one of those synergies that, once discovered, makes the game seem much easier and at the same time much more fun. The famous infinite orbs builds using Blaze Ink are popular among experienced players precisely because they transform how you play. Instead of running from one side to the other trying to survive, you move with confidence, knowing the orbs are clearing everything around you. The shields generated by certain combinations also add an extra layer of security, allowing you to make mistakes without paying the price immediately. It is the perfect combination of offense and defense, where you are always attacking even when you seem to be just dodging. If you want to take your Realm of Ink experience to the next level, seeking this synergy with Blaze Ink and building an infinite orb setup is essential. Keep an eye out for combinations that generate rotating orbs or shields, because they are the secret to dominating the game's hardest phases. It is an advanced tip that completely changes the combat dynamics and gives you a sense of power that few other roguelikes can deliver. In the game, dying is not failure, it is just part of the progression, and every time you return to the Fox Inn, you have a precious opportunity to get permanently stronger. Many people hoard jades out of fear of spending them, but the secret is to invest all your jades every time you return, ensuring permanent attributes that will help you in all future runs. The heart of this permanent progression is investing Foxblood in the Talent Stella, located inside the Fox Inn. This is the main way to make your character stronger in the long run, and every point of Foxblood you put into the talent tree brings real lasting benefits. It doesn't matter if you died in the previous run. What matters is that you learned something, collected jades, and now you can use that to become stronger. It is a very well-made metagame progression system where each death actually contributes to your growth as a player. Investing everything you have at each visit to the Fox Inn is the right strategy because permanent attributes accumulate and become increasingly powerful over time. The more you invest, the stronger your character becomes in all important stats: damage, health, speed, resistance, and much more. This means future runs will become progressively easier, and you will be able to reach further, collect more jades, and invest even more, creating a virtuous cycle of power that leads you to the game's hardest phases. If you want to truly master Realm of Ink, never leave the Fox Inn without having spent all your jades in the talent tree. Saving resources is a common mistake that will prevent you from evolving at the right speed, and the difference between players who get stuck in the middle of the game and those who master the final phases lies exactly in this discipline of always investing. It is a simple tip, but one that makes all the difference when you are trying to take your run to the end. In Realm of Ink, I've lost so many runs because I was so obsessed with just increasing damage that I started thinking something was wrong with the game. The truth is that in more advanced runs, focusing only on damage is a trap that leads to frustration. One or two right hits from the enemy and you are back at the death screen without even having time to react. That is when I learned the hard way that damage reduction, DR, isn't beginner stuff it is pure survival. Whenever I see a damage reduction perk available, I stop and think, can this save me from dying in 2 hits? If the answer is yes, it is almost always worth taking, even if it seems less exciting than more damage. At first, it feels like your growth is slowing down, but in reality, you are building a solid foundation that allows you to endure longer and deal damage consistently. In a roguelike, enduring longer is the same as having more opportunities to win. At the end of the game, just stacking damage becomes a serious problem. You kill quickly, but you also die quickly. The combination that really works for me is DR plus healing plus DOT. With damage reduction, you survive heavy hits. With healing, you stay stable during the fight. And with DOT, you deal constant damage without needing to stay at maximum risk. This triad makes you much more reliable than any pure damage build, even if it looks shinier on paper. If you want to take your runs seriously, treat damage reduction as a central part of your strategy, not as an afterthought. The feeling of taking a hit that would have previously killed you, repositioning, and continuing to deal damage is priceless. And when the run gets toward the end, you realize that it wasn't the maximum damage that saved you, it was having built something balanced, stable, and truly alive in the midst of the chaos of Realm of Ink. Many people end their journey as soon as they beat the final boss or reach the true ending, but the game really opens up important doors at that moment. Endless mode is unlocked exactly after you complete the game for the first time, and it becomes the perfect tool to continue evolving, testing new things, and mainly accumulating resources efficiently. Endless mode is ideal for testing your character's limits because you can push your builds to their breaking point without the pressure of a traditional run with a final goal. It is the perfect environment to experiment with crazy combinations of gems, perks, and talents that you wouldn't dare try in a normal run. As you push through endless waves of enemies, you discover what really works, what breaks the game, and which synergies are worth the investment. It is like a free test lab that the game gives you after the end of the story. In addition to testing builds, Endless Mode is excellent for farming materials consistently, especially Jade and Foxblood, which are essential for your permanent progression. Each wave you survive, each enemy you defeat, brings more resources that you can use at the Fox Inn to invest in the Talent Stella and get even stronger. It is much more efficient than redoing normal runs because in Endless, you can maintain momentum, you don't need to restart from scratch all the time, and you can accumulate absurd amounts of resources in longer sessions. If you want to truly master Realm of Ink and take your runs to the maximum, don't end your journey after the finale. Go straight to Endless Mode and make the most of it. Use this mode to farm everything you need, test extreme builds, and prepare for the next rounds with a much stronger character. It is the post-game content that is truly worth it, and that transforms Realm of Ink from an ordinary roguelike into an addictive experience you want to keep exploring. Many people enter Realm of Ink thinking the rule is simple: activate the gem's active skill as soon as the cooldown ends, and that's it. But I've already lost entire runs by following this automatic behavior without thinking about the context. The trick is to understand that using the active on cooldown is not always the best choice, and sometimes holding it is what turns an ordinary run into a strong one. The example that sticks with me most is Burning Ink. Its passive accumulates burn silently, which is great for long fights, and especially for bosses, where time is longer and the accumulation becomes massive damage. Meanwhile, the active consumes all the stacks at once for a huge burst. If you use the active on a boss right away, you are throwing away all the potential of the passive. The correct way is to hold the active until you have accumulated plenty of stacks, and only then release it at the right moment. In quick rooms, the logic flips. Then you do use the active to clear quickly because waiting for accumulation isn't worth it. Against bosses, the ideal is to let the passive work, accumulate as much burn as possible, and only then detonate with the active at the moment of greatest pressure. This difference in timing completely changes the gem's efficiency. What seems the same on the surface, in practice becomes two totally different strategies depending on where you are. The most ironic thing is that many gems in Realm of Ink are more valuable for their passive plus pet bonus than for the active itself. The active grabs attention. It seems more active and cool, but it is the passive that works all the time, building your advantage discreetly. If you start reading carefully how each gem works and think about when to use the active, not just when the cooldown ends, your runs will become much more consistent and less dependent on luck.